Good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna Reese, and I am so pleased to be here on behalf of the Milken Institute and Endeavor, which I'll tell you a little about in a minute. But we have four amazing Endeavor entrepreneurs here and a very good friend of Endeavor. To my left here is Amjad, who is here from Jordan. We have Diego, who is representing Chile. Esteban, Chile, Diego from Colombia, Phaedra from Greece, and Jonathan, who we decided is a citizen of the world, having been born in Singapore, schooled in Australia, and now living in San Francisco. So you're international all in one. The four entrepreneurs here are part of an organization, or they've been selected as part of an organization called Endeavor. And Endeavor is a not-for-profit that was started 15 years ago to support high-impact entrepreneurs in emerging markets, with the idea that entrepreneurs face lots of hurdles and barriers to success, and in emerging markets, there's even more. And Endeavor provides a whole host of resources for its entrepreneurs, MBA talent, a global network, access to smart capital, partnerships. We have partnerships with major consulting firms and accounting firms. And our goal with the entrepreneurs is to really help them scale and build big businesses. And Endeavor entrepreneurs last year generated about $5.5 billion in revenue. They've created over 200,000 high-quality jobs. And we're just really pleased with the success that we've had to date. What's fascinating is we're in 15 countries, about to be in 17. And some of the newer countries we're going into, we're being asked to come. Countries like Greece and Spain and Poland, who say, we need Endeavor because we don't have a culture of entrepreneurship here, and the future of our economy is really at risk because we need to generate this culture of entrepreneurship and helping people create their own businesses and create jobs. And we just launched, one last little thing about Endeavor, we've just launched a new impact investment fund called Endeavor Catalyst that enables investors to put money into the fund. The money gets drawn down in the same way it would in a venture capital fund. We invest that money in our entrepreneurs, and as returns are achieved, investors get their money back plus a preferred return, and we're using the balance of the return to fund Endeavor's growth. We did actually a backwards look, and we said, had we had this fund in place over the last 10 years, it would have returned 3 times on invested capital, which would have put it in the top quartile of venture capital funds. So we're really excited about the potential of this fund and the potential of this fund to enable us to expand more globally. So now I'm just going to have each one of the entrepreneurs and Jonathan give a quick background about your business and just give us some general idea of scale and market scope.
Okay, thank you very much, Joanne. I started Pharmacy One in Amman, in Jordan, in 2001. Today, Pharmacy One, we have 55 outlets in Jordan. We expanded into Saudi Arabia. We have about 28, 29 outlets in Saudi. And we just started expanding into the Iraqi market, in the Kurdish part of Iraq. Between 2001 and 2006, we had only 2 outlets, similar to a typical drugstore here in the US. We introduced it to the region, your Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Eckerd's. We introduced the big stores. Between 2001 to 2006, we had only 2 stores. Regulations, laws did not allow us to actually establish chain pharmacies. We managed to actually change the law in 2006. And between 2006, we grew to today, we grew from 2 outlets to 81 outlets now. And hopefully we're still growing. We have approximately 650 employees. By the end of this year, we will have about 800, of which 60% are women. Which is, in our part of the world, it's 10% only of the workforce are women. We have 60% women. Of the number of pharmacists, 80% are females. So this is great, with an average age of 27. So we have a very young company, right fresh out of college. Revenues this year expected to be, last year was $75 million. This year we will go above 100, hopefully.
I just want to do a quick little round of applause on that one. What's also amazing is in Jordan, you're not allowed to he can't advertise a pharmacy. So I know we all see CVS and Walgreens ads. He can't advertise at all and still has had that kind of growth. It's amazing. Go ahead, Esteban.
Hi, my name is Esteban Sosnik, and I co-founded 2 video game companies from Latin America, developing games to the world for the international markets. The first one was about 10 years ago, which was the pioneer developer of console games from Latin America to the world, called Wanaco Games. That company specialized on online console games. It was successfully acquired by Vivendi Games at the time, after 5 years of founding it, and it's now still the leader in console game development in Latin America. And in 2009, I co-founded a new company called Atacama Labs on the mobile social gaming business. We do games for Android and iOS devices. The company is currently about 70 professionals, all highly skilled university graduates, about 60% engineers. The rest are designers, artists, and producers. We were acquired about a year ago by DNA, which is the largest mobile social gaming company in the world, with about $2 billion run rate and 2,000 employees worldwide. So we're now part of that big organization. We're currently the largest mobile game developer in our region and growing very successfully.
Diego.
My name is Diego. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called We Travelers. We are the operators of We Hostels. And what we do, we develop mobile applications for travelers that helps them connect to accommodations all over the world, and also to connect between the community of travelers moving around the world. And I am originally from Argentina. I lived in Europe during the time in Europe. We had all these ideas about how mobile and social was going to have an impact in the travel industry. And after that, we decided to start a company from Latin America. We started a company in Chile. From Chile, we moved to the US and we opened an office in New York. And from New York, we moved back. We didn't move back, but we opened a shop in Colombia where we have developers in Bogota. And we were able to raise investment from investors in 9 different countries. Some of them I haven't met in person yet. And right now, we have operations in New York, in Colombia, and we work with freelancers in Buenos Aires, in Santiago. So we are very early still, but already playing in a global field. We are connecting 40,000 budget accommodations around the world that include hostels, budget hotels, and bed and breakfast. We have more than 150,000 customers using the app to book, and thousands of bookings every month.
Great. Phaedra.
Good morning. My name is Phaedra Crusos, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Daily Secret. 2.5 years ago, my co-founder and I decided to take a very successful US business model, the curated email newsletter, and bring it to the rest of the world where it didn't exist. So you may have heard of Daily Candy, Thrillist, Urban Daddy. That model of sending content over email doesn't exist in the rest of the world, and we decided to bring it there. We started in Athens, Greece, which is where we're originally from, and during the middle of an economic storm, which is always the most interesting thing to do. And from there, from piloting it there, we slowly, over the last 2.5 years, have expanded it to 20 countries. We reach 1.3 million people every single day with our curated email newsletter. And right now, we are the largest email distribution network in Europe and Latin America, and we've recently established a foothold in Asia with Mumbai and Shanghai Daily Secret, and in the Middle East with Dubai Daily Secret. We were the first Greek Endeavor company to enter last year, and so far we've been thrilled with the mentorship and the access to ideas that it's given us.
My name's Jonathan Teal. I'm an engineer turned investor. So I used to run international R&D for Google all around the world. And right now I have a venture capital fund called General Catalyst Partners. We invest in a whole range at the Series A stage. So first, outside capital in some of our companies that you may have heard of, Kayak. We have Airbnb, we have Warby Parker. I personally am an investor in pre the fund days, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, a lot of consumer-facing products. And so a lot of our interest has been in replicating some of these models overseas and some of the lessons that we've learned that hopefully we can share it today.
Right. So being an entrepreneur is a challenge just to begin with. So what specific challenges do you think that you've faced that might be different than, especially some of you with experience in the US too, that are different in emerging markets versus what the landscape is like in the US? Like Amjad, you just talked about the fact that you couldn't have a chain. It wasn't legal to have a chain. What other types of obstacles have you faced?
Multiple challenges. First of all, it's very hard to go to one's own country. I lived in the US for 20 years. When I came home with the idea of establishing a chain pharmacy, the naysayers were left, right, and center. You cannot do it. What works in the US cannot work in our part of the world. Our customers will not understand it, so forth and so on. The second things are law and regulations, which we talked about briefly. And access to finance is actually a huge challenge in emerging markets. One of the biggest challenges I had is dealing with the regulators, which is the Jordanian Pharmaceutical Association, for example, the Saudi Pharmaceutical Association, which actually have different laws and regulations, in different countries. Trying to take exactly what works in the US there does not really work. So we had to actually fine-tune it to meet the local culture and to meet the local audience. And these are just some of the many challenges we had. We'll talk about the good things after a while, but let's start with that.
And Diego, you talked about being in Latin America, but also New York.
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges for starting for entrepreneurs in Latin America is access to capital, right? So there aren't that many venture capitals, there aren't that many angel investors. There isn't a big story of exits in Latin America. So that's one of the challenges, and we kind of tackle this challenge by going to New York and raising capital in the US. And one of the challenges of building a company in the US, on the other hand, that we're experiencing now that we're in the US, is access to talent, where I think talented engineers for mobile development are really expensive and affordable for startups. So we tackle this challenge by going and looking for talent in Latin America. So in our case was kind of looking in which region we can find the resources to build a company. And then other challenges that we experienced at the beginning in Latin America was payments and transactions is something that is still with a lot of friction in Latin America, so we had to adapt our business model. And at the beginning, what we will do is to execute a booking of a hotel in Latin America. We'll try to send money to the hotels, or the opposite, try to charge money from hotels. And then we soon learned that there was a lot of problems trying to do these international payments in Latin America. So we changed to a model in which the user pays upfront only the commission of the booking, and then they pay the rest of the value of the booking when they arrive to the hotel. So there is an international transaction. So I think entrepreneurs have to find these turnarounds when it comes to logistics and payments and transactions between the countries in Latin America.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting question for me because we started so recently expanding our business model to other countries. Across the portfolio of 20 countries, we haven't seen many challenges, just advantages. For us, the unit economics of the business in the US are the same with the unit economics of the business abroad. So given that in mind, that the business fundamentals are the same, for us, the only advantage that we've had is that we've innovated by being a follower. So we've had the foresight to be able to look at what the US has done and copy the best practices and move forward. So for us, there have been more advantages and challenges.
Are you hiring talent to build your team in Greece or in the US?
We're hiring in Greece, only in Greece. And we're actually really fortunate because of the economic crisis, we've had a huge access to talent that we would never have had before the crisis, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, for us, so when I started my first startup about 10 years ago in the video game industry, one of the challenges was that the industry, we were the first ones doing video games from Latin America to the world. So finding partners and supporters from a publishing perspective was hard. I mean, people didn't even know where Latin America was on a map. I remember a guy coming to visit us in Chile, and he said, oh, I've been in this area. I've been to Mexico once. He thought we were like right next to Mexico. So we were completely putting the Latin American map on the industry. So the credibility, it took us, 5 years essentially to build that credibility, which eventually came when we developed the Game of the Year. I mean, the product that spoke on itself. I would say maybe another challenge to scale a company, not necessarily to build it, could be some of the talent in terms of, if I compare it to Silicon Valley, which is where I'm based, you see a lot of the effects of companies that are founded maybe by an entrepreneur with no experience, but as soon as he starts getting some traction and some very distinguished products, he can start surrounding himself with a lot of people who have done it before. So you've seen the people from the generation that worked in Yahoo, then went on to work on Google, then went on to work on Facebook, now are probably generating new startups. That's still on the early stages in an emerging market. So you need to home breed and to really build those capabilities from zero. So as much as there is a lot of talent, inexpensive talent, and which is an incredible opportunity, a lot of much less competition and high quality talent, there is that lack of experience that might take a little bit more for companies to scale.
Yeah. So Jonathan,
Yeah.
they're obviously talking about the issue related to financing. What's your view of investment in emerging markets, and particularly if you could touch on how you think about exits, because that's one thing that we often hear about.
Actually, so the thing about international markets is that there's no one set formula to make it work, and I think it does feel like it's tough, but to your point, Fred, it's actually all opportunities because there's a lot less noise. What we found is that because the US is very much built on this advertising-centric model, you do have a lot of capital that chases scale and growth before revenues, whereas what we found as international businesses that succeed think about the unit economics from a very, very early stage. Either they borrow it and they translate it into their domestic environment, or they have something that's customized domestically, that's emerged domestically, but you need to think about revenues early on. The capital resources are always going to be hard to get from the U.S. when you're starting a business outside the U.S. So to Diego's point, getting access to U.S. capital sometimes requires a move of the entrepreneur to the U.S. That has two big advantages. One is you get the institutionalized knowledge that Esteban talks about. You get to plug yourself into an environment where you have people that have done it before coming around you, and you also get to raise that capital a little bit easier. Every country has its unique kind of quirks, and so there really isn't one set formula. I think that's why Endeavor, doing what it does, bringing the talent and the ecosystem together in each of these micro entrepreneurial landscapes is important. But one of the things that does support great startups is this feedback loop of knowledge from folks that have done it before. And so I always encourage entrepreneurs that have succeeded in the US, that have a passion for their home country, to go back, actually share that, and bring capital as well as the expertise back. It's fun. Building international business is fun because there's just less noise. You just have to be a little bit more strategic.
So just to the last point, though, so how do you think about exits? Because if it isn't a vibrant capital market locally, do you think about exits by backing that entrepreneur in an emerging market and having a U.S. company buy them?
Yeah, exits are always tough. The public markets in a lot of these developing countries aren't mature enough to support an independent company. Neither sometimes is the actual business, the business market. So that aside, where now you only can look at exits on the public market for a few of these emerging countries, say China, some parts of Europe, some parts of Southeast Asia, most of the exits tend to be acquisitions. They tend to be expansion strategies for larger corporations that want to build up a team in, say, in Latin America, or build up a team in some parts of Europe. So it's really geared towards what's the strategic value of a company rather than the utility value of the company at this point in time. I think as the capital markets start to mature, you'll start to see a different profile of exits.
And you all have started companies, and Esteban having sold them. Was that part of your intent when you started to think, I'm going to build this and hopefully get bought either by a U.S. company or?
No, no, not at all. I mean, in both cases, I wanted to build large companies, and I'm proud to say that in both cases we kind of created not only companies but industries, an ecosystem of companies that the people that supplied us with services, then they created their own companies and were able to enlarge it. And we, in many cases, we were like used as mentors for others. But no, I think when we created both companies, the purpose was just to be the large, profitable, and sustainable company, and we just had good opportunities for exits that, for different circumstances, we selected to go for that. But it's true that so far in Latin America, and particularly in Latin America, I mean, there are just a few cases of companies that have built internationally. In Latin America, even fewer products that are global successes that were not developed in the US. And so far, a lot of the acquisitions, like Jonathan was saying, have had to do a lot with its strategic importance for the acquirer in having a presence in an emerging market, more than the value of the product or the service that you provide. I'm a huge believer in that's going to change soon. The model that we think about a lot is Skype. Skype was developed, I think, a lot of it in Estonia or in Eastern Europe. There are more and more of those companies happening, and I'm a big believer that actually the next Twitter, Facebook, will for sure come from an emerging market. It might be Latin America, but I'm a big believer that that's going to happen.
You've all talked a little bit about talent in different ways, but let's kind of delve a little deeper on that. Amjad, it was fascinating with you to talk about that you have such a young company, that so many of them are women. Are they coming to you? How are you recruiting them? Are you training them, doing a lot of specific internal training? And then I'd love everybody just to kind of touch on talent in your own geography.
One of the challenges we had actually when we first started in Jordan is to find the right human capital. And one of the things the company did that really helped recruit the right people is that we established simulation pharmacies in 5 colleges of pharmacies in Jordan. So we have a Pharmacy One simulation pharmacy inside the campus, where students are trained for 3 months in our pharmacy before graduation. And part of the training staff are our staff. We actually helped with the training. It was a copy of Pharmacy One, touch, feel, look, but it had empty boxes of medications. That really allowed us to actually get the cream of the crop out of college, and helped really get a good team on board. The other thing we did was stop the brain drain. What part of the problem in Jordan and other parts of the Middle East is brains tend to actually leave the country elsewhere. We brought in a lot of experienced pharmacists who studied in the United States, like myself, and we brought them back to Jordan because now there is a job opportunity for them to do what they're doing here. And that helped a lot. And finally, today we made our Pharmacy One Training and Drug Information Center as a separate diploma institution. We now give diploma in retail pharmacy management, a postgraduate diploma, and we got accreditation from the Ministry of Higher Education to actually start giving a specialized diploma in retail pharmacy management. All this together really helped put a great team on board.
That's incredible. Will you continue to do that as you expand to new countries? Would you set something like that up in Saudi as an example?
Actually, we're now debating between actually bringing them to Jordan to train them in Jordan, then sending to Saudi Arabia, which will be easier because of the logistics and also the instructors, because in Saudi the instructor have to be mainly males, and we have a lot of female instructors. So we bring in the Saudi pharmacists to Jordan, train them, and send them back.
That's incredible.
Yeah, in my case, I mean, we work very closely with universities. We were able to hire amazing engineers. The fact that there isn't that much of a developed startup ecosystem in our home countries means that there's also not much competition, and your competitions tend to be very large and boring, sort of traditional firms. So for those who are interested, it becomes very appealing to if you're able to provide an entrepreneurial ecosystem where they can really see the product of their work have an impact on the company and your products every day, and provide, by the way, a very fun atmosphere that it's very meritocratic and very horizontal without much hierarchy. In our case in Chile, that was a huge advantage, and we've been able to hire, at some point we were told we had the highest IQ per square meter, per square footage in all of Chile. It just allows you to build really, to attract really great talent. So it's been, the lack of competition and being so, new, it was a great way to attract great talent. And a lot of the, I think, engineers specifically in emerging markets are very used to sort of working from the periphery, right? So they tend to be extremely resourceful. So for example, in Latin America, a lot of our engineers were, client engineers and server engineers. So they didn't know really the difference. I mean, they were developing features. They knew how to ship a feature, how to ship a product. Many times even doing user experience. So they're very generalists and extremely resourceful. So with a small team, we were able to reach, accomplish a lot of things.
Great.
Yeah, so I agree with Esteban that the reason why we have an advantage in terms of access to talent is because the lack of alternative opportunities in the work environment. However, if you see the number of engineers as a percentage of the population in Latin America is really low. So when we saw that, we said, what's going on here? And I think, one of the reasons are cultural reasons. People don't, your mom in Latin America tells you to be a doctor or a lawyer and not to be an engineer, as in some countries in Asia. So, we see there an opportunity and a challenge. So one of the things that we did together with other startups in Colombia, we co-founded a nonprofit organization called Code Rise. And what we're doing is we're teaching kids in high schools to code, to write software, with the intention of putting in their mind the idea of studying engineering or programming careers. And also we put together some meetups in which engineers come and share knowledge. And I think this is kind of a long-term bet, but we're going to see in the next few years, we hope more and more engineers in Latin America, which is going to be an opportunity for companies.
How do you fund the nonprofit? Does the government help at all, or is it all private?
For now, we started, each of the startups are part, we donated part of our, our own money, but we're looking forward to find ways to keep funding. We have some ideas to make it sustainable as well. Maybe charging some money that can make it sustainable in a way.
Great.
Yeah. I echo a lot of the things that are being said in this panel. We look for IQ and willingness to learn when we hire people. We don't look for a specific skill set because we know that when they come in, we're going to have to train them to a certain degree. And that's not very much unlike what happens in the US at a large consulting firm or a Goldman Sachs or a McKinsey. There is or a GE, or these large Walgreen type companies. There is a large component of training. So the idea is, can you get access to available talent in terms of IQ and willingness to learn? And I think that the emerging world is a wonderful place for that.
Jonathan, just to turn the conversation slightly, how do you used to say in the world of venture capital, you shouldn't invest in a company you can't drive to. So as you're investing all over the world, how active do you think you can be as an investor? And then how does that make you think about the team you're backing? Do you look for a more mature team than maybe you would if you were closer by?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to invest outside of your local geography because at the early stages, you want to spend a lot of time with the entrepreneur. So you typically end up cherry picking the later stage companies if you invest outside of your geography, the ones that are already showing success, or you invest in areas that you're intimately familiar with. So let's say us investing in travel. But that said, it's still very challenging because, like I say, every international market is different, and every company that's built up in these places is built up in a different way. The talent situation is one that is very dear to my heart because that's what I did when I was at Google. And it's all about trying to figure out what's the talent migration patterns. Certain countries, you have the large corporations that want to suck the talent out, and those folks actually are keen to leave the countries, right? And so they don't tend to coalesce domestically, Whereas there are other countries, and I'll use some parts of Latin America, Bulgaria, Ukraine, where engineers that are born there want to stay there. They're just dying to find a company that's great. And so providing them with PlayStation, with ping pong tables, coalescing the best folks, because the best talent really just wants to work on great ideas with great people. If you can provide them that and you suck up all the oxygen in the environment to say that you are the best place for a Ruby engineer, you may be able to coexist with a company that's the best place for a Java engineer. And there may be two great companies in that one region that sucks up all the talent, and you are golden. You're actually good to go there. But besides that, if you're not one of those two, it's going to be a uphill struggle.
Yeah. We're going to open up for questions with the audience in just a minute or two. I just want to, so let's talk a little bit about company culture. So you're in emerging markets that might not necessarily have an entrepreneurial culture. And so how do you think about building culture in your own organization? Obviously, you talked about training, but culture. And I'm curious, too, with the companies that have a US and a presence in your home market, how do you build the culture across these big oceans? So maybe
I want to say something about investing outside, if you allow me.
Yeah, sure.
Land of opportunity can and does also exist out of the United States. We tend to always believe that land of opportunity is here. There are other lands of opportunity. So private equities and venture capitals should actually look outside of the United States for investment. They can always take a 10-hour flight and be there and not only drive there. But the culture, I think the culture is what you make of it. I introduced, with the help of a great team, very much a Western US type culture at the office, open door policy, openness to new idea, and attracting actually young talent that can actually come in and speak their minds. And together, we made pharmacy on what it is today. It's the management style can actually, you can make of it what you want. And
no resistance, no, people have easily adapted to that culture and embraced it?
Yes, actually, we don't have problems. Actually, the biggest challenge was customer service, actually, getting the team to actually think of the customer first. And today I can tell you that we have superb customer service. When I go to our competitors here in the US, I can feel that we're way much better than they are.
That's excellent. No competition.
In our case, yeah, I think it was mostly about building a very horizontal and very meritocratic culture. People appreciated that a lot, especially because a lot of the jobs that they were considering before coming to us were very large hierarchical organizations. So the fact that we provided them with all the tools to really make a difference and really make decisions on themselves, that's a huge part. Other minor things we did was like we always build global companies from Latin America, so we made sure to have various nationalities in our companies. So we had people from all around the world. That brings a cool vibe, which makes you actually turns into that the company language is English. So we write, we talk in English, we write all our internal documents in English. So the two opportunities I had of being acquired, not only working with partners, clients, but also being acquired, kind of the integration went extremely smoothly because we were already thinking globally and talking in English, and little things like that can make a big difference. And nowadays, with video communications over IP, it's extremely easy to have a very sort of cohesive working process across multiple locations. I mean, I see it as much more of an opportunity than a challenge. So.
Yeah, same. I think in Latin America there is a legacy of a strong culture of respect to authority, but I think new generations and these new work environments that startups are creating change the paradigm of speaking up, and everyone has the authority to create and to have an opinion, and we try to foster that through the day-to-day way of rewarding actions and also mistakes. And I think also it's a challenge and opportunity, the tools that you use to work when you have people in different countries. and also, we speak in English and we document everything in English. So all these things, have an impact, I think.
So what language do you use?
In English.
English, really?
I was going to say,
that surprised me.
we also
Yeah.
speak in English and document everything in English, and it's because of the multicultural nature of our team in Athens, but also our team abroad. And for us, we just tried to take as many best practices that we had seen from the U.S. and bring them to Greece. We wanted to break that 9-to-5 culture that people have at times in other countries, where they go in, they do their job, they clock in, they clock out. First by selecting the right people, and then by giving them accountability and responsibility, which is scary at first, but then very empowering to run their own departments. So we always say that Daily Secret's a safe place to take risks, or it should be a safe place to take risks, and that that mantra really helps our team to be both accountable and progressive.
Mm-hmm. Any comments on culture that you've seen in your experience?
Culture is the most important thing for a startup.
Yeah.
So I really believe that. And I think standardizing language is one of the key things. I think distributed engineering is one of the things that is well understood now. So you can have development teams in different parts of the country. And that's where international entrepreneurs actually really shine, is that they understand how to use the resources from wherever they came from, which is typically at a much lower cost base, and integrate it with a lot of the US practices. So, culture is one of the most important things.
So
no doubt about it.
You have the culture within your organizations. What changes have you seen in the entrepreneurial culture, though, in your country? So not just within the walls of your business, but more broadly.
We were the first chain pharmacy in Jordan, but today there are 14 chain pharmacies in Jordan.
Yeah.
We started, we helped change the law. Now there are 14, making approximately 25% of the total pharmacies in Jordan are chain pharmacies. The same thing is in Saudi Arabia. So actually bringing in a new idea, changing the law can actually not only benefit the company, the first comer, but also other companies, and create more jobs opportunity, which is key in the Middle East. Let me just give you one example. An average pharmacy in Jordan, a privately owned pharmacy, employ 1 or 2 people. We employ 15 per outlet. So that's the job opportunity that a new idea can actually bring to the country.
Great.
Yeah, when I started my first startup in Chile in 2002, there were probably no more than 5 or 10 locally founded startups in Chile, and probably we were the only ones with a global perspective, with a global view, global ambition. Right now, that has changed so much in the last 10 years. This was 11 years ago. The government has funded a big program called Startup Chile to bring entrepreneurs from different parts of the world to Chile. It has also funded VC funds, helped fund VC funds. Right now, you're seeing at least 600 startups funded in Chile. Many of them are global because they're started by global entrepreneurs. There's an entrepreneurial association in Chile founded, I think, last year with 3,500 members. So that's amazing for the country and for every single company. It just creates an ecosystem of people who understand how startups work, who then you can rotate across and spread the know-how. So it's just kind of a wave that started happening, and it's just the beginning.
Great.
Yeah, I see the same, not only in Chile. I think all the countries in Latin America, there is a lot going on. There are accelerators, there are programs of the government, there are incubators, there are schools of startups, and this is something we're seeing in Brazil, in Colombia, in Argentina, in Peru, Telefónica, which is a big corporation. Even corporations are putting money to seed fund startups, and it's something that it just happened last year, probably last 2 years. Yeah. And I'm very optimistic about all the new entrepreneurial culture that can be created for long term. So, yeah.
That's great.
Interestingly enough, Greece is a little behind than the countries that you're in Latin America. We were so comfortable for so many years with our economy being the way it was, this kind of beautiful bubble that we had, that people weren't losing their jobs, people weren't forging on their own, they weren't taking risks. And it was the economic crisis that suddenly created a whole slew of entrepreneurs coming in. all resourceful and smart and can tap into ideas from the US and from other countries and tap into the internet for learnings. But the problem is that resourcefulness only gets you so far, and I think that's where Endeavor has done a fantastic job coming in, is taking these thousands of young entrepreneurs that are kind of emerging out of the woodworks and showing them the way, by introducing them to people that have done it before. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs, but I don't know how many of them are going to get to the next level, and I think that's the problem now. We need that infrastructure to support them.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, when we were talking earlier, you said in recent numbers you've looked at that U.S. venture capital firms and private are pulling back from their support in early stage, emerging market financings. This obviously is a representation of the incredible opportunity that exists outside the U.S. Thank you for making that point. So, what's happening?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's just more of an ongoing negative sentiment globally of capital and its use of the use of capital, investing in startups. The reason U.S. capital is pulling back from international markets is because there's a lot of local capital sources that are emerging. So there are folks that are investing domestically. I think as far as taking that to the viewpoint of what's the culture difference between, say, Silicon Valley and the rest of the world, is that an entrepreneur starting a company in Silicon Valley is much like somebody playing paintball versus somebody that's starting a company overseas. You're playing in a war zone. There are a lot of soft landings for U.S. entrepreneurs, a lot of soft landings. We've created in Silicon Valley a whole ecosystem, a whole career ladder, a whole support structure to encourage innovation, encourage the risk taking. A lot of other countries don't have that support structure. You try, you fail, you're going to have to pick yourself up again. No one's going to help you up. And I think U.S. investors have sort of thought that it was as easy replicating models overseas and investing in stuff they know overseas. But it's very clear that domestic capital, if it's intelligent, if it's coming from the right sources, is a lot better suited at that early stage of company building. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why. It's not that there aren't great opportunities overseas. It's what is the right match for the capital and the entrepreneur. Mm-hmm.
Did you, I think, Diego, I think it's actually kind of humorous that you haven't met some of your investors. It would be interesting to have them on. But did your money come from mostly the United States?
From the United States, from Europe, and from South America, but it was mainly United States and Europe.
Yeah.
We have Netherlands, France, Germany, and Spain.
And Phaedra, your money came from mostly the U.S.?
Yeah, we have 3 tremendous venture capital investors based out of the U.S., Greycroft Partners, eVentures, and Trigger Media, who is the partner behind Daily Candy, Thrillist, Tasting Table, et cetera. So we came to the U.S. not because there was more capital, because there is capital now in Europe, but because there was, like Jonathan mentioned, there's a structured ecosystem around fundraising capital. So we knew that this is what you need to do to take the first step, the second step, the third step, whereas in Europe, capital is there, but the access to it is not as clear.
One of the great impacts now that Endeavor's been having as entrepreneurs have had success, many are becoming the venture capitalists in their local markets and supporting that next generation of entrepreneurs. We'd love to take some questions from the audience. Go ahead. Oh wait, there's a microphone coming because they're recording it.
How you doing, Adam Black? You guys all started, in your respective countries. What recommendations can you give people that are starting in U.S. and want to emerge in global markets?
Go ahead.
And I would say that to keep the business fundamentals in mind, the unit economics of your business in the U.S. and abroad are always going to be the same. And to select a company that has fantastic unit economics and the ability to scale. And if you can do that, then adapting to each market now, I think in our experience at Daily Secret, in this current environment where everything is so globalized, is a lot easier than it was perhaps 10 years ago.
Yeah, I just want one comment. My thought is a little bit different. I'm not sure if I get the question around saying you want to start it in the US and then expand globally, or you want to start in the US to serve an specific international market. But in either case, we always do feel it's important to focus on a market and focus on nailing that market. And the US is such a big market. If you're building it here, why not focus on this market first and get the scale here, innovate here, and then move it overseas, where it's more of a strategic land grab after that. Because defocusing and trying to go after a global footprint from the start has not proven to work well for a lot of companies.
Just maybe some of the entrepreneurs could comment, have you seen US companies come into your market and fail?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's also, it's happening much faster than it used to. One of the cases is Groupon. Groupon, as it was expanding in the US, it was also expanding very aggressively internationally. Some other companies are taking a little longer, but now, for example, Latin America, Netflix is operating in a number of countries. So you're starting to see more and more companies that are consolidated in the US, but even before being totally consolidated, growing in the US, also see the opportunities of growing internationally because they see that otherwise they're probably going to have sort of local copycats and local competition. I totally agree that for a company operating in the US, this should probably be your highest priority market. And if you're going to think about expanding to other countries, you probably want to, in most of the cases, depending on the industry and your type of product, in most of the cases you want to build a local team or have a very strong local partner to gain scale locally.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a comment. Running a company in emerging markets is not running one company. For example, I run 6 companies to be able to run my core company. Okay, if I wanted to build an IT system, I cannot go buy an IT system off the shelf. I have to create an IT company that can support my core company. If I want security, I cannot outsource security. I have to find a security company to help have security for my branches and so forth and so on. So, you end up running multiple companies to run the core company in emerging markets. Unlike in the US, where you can actually outsource everything and concentrate on what it is that you do best. So I don't think moving from the US to an emerging market is going to be just an easy. I think starting in an emerging market, learning the culture, learning how things are done is the way to go.
Did you?
I think you bring up an excellent point of the difference between a brick and mortar company and an internet company. But in the internet world, we outsource our customer service, we outsource our cloud space, we outsource, our content management system, parts of it. We outsource our social media management tools. We outsource everything, and we're in 20 countries, and I think about 75% of those are emerging countries. So we haven't found that issue, but I do understand if the brick and mortar company, I can imagine the kind of ecosystem that you'd have to create to support one company.
And a lot of these outsourcing and services are from international. We host everything on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to outsource with local companies.
Absolutely.
So the internet space
Zendesk.
really creates a very flat world.
No.
Zendesk.
You mentioned that everybody now in business. Okay. You had mentioned that you all speak English in your business world, and I was wondering how early in the process in your various countries does that education take place? Are you young adults, or do you start at a very early age now?
In terms of formal education into English?
Yes. Well, formal or informal. You've all learned very well, and
yeah.
I assume that this language is going to grow and become a catalyst for the growth in various emerging countries. I know my experience in China.
Right.
Been like that. So curious, how early does it start, and are young adults getting involved in learning communication skills that they didn't have when, say, they were teenagers?
Well, in Jordan, actually, it starts right from preschool, and it's the English. The English is the business language, so 99% of universities, the education is in English. So it just becomes natural that you speak English at work, especially in correspondence. We could speak Arabic and English when we speak among each other, but it's mainly English when we use the email or use business language.
I want to say that in Latin America, a company called Open English recently raised more than $100 million to give English classes online. They have more than 70,000 students, I think, and it's all online education, so it's a huge interest for learning English in Latin America.
Other questions? Yes, right here.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for telling your story. It's very inspiring. It sounds like, well, I think the companies here are mostly B2C, but my company focuses on B2B information. And if one looks at emerging markets, that the B2B information space tends not to be as well developed. And so if we have an expertise in a certain type of information, let's say commercial real estate information, and we want to expand into a market like Brazil or Vietnam, let's say, and there isn't a partner that one can partner with. I think one of the ways we can do it is by identifying an entrepreneur or someone in the space who has the ability to do it. How can one go about identifying those individuals? So it's not a company, it's an individual or a group of individuals. Do you have any thoughts around that?
One idea could be to actually contact a local Endeavor company. Endeavor is a non-for-profit that supports the high-impact entrepreneurs in a lot of these emerging countries. I don't know, they're like in 25 countries now?
No, we're in 17.
17,
Yeah.
but growing to 25. So that's just one idea. So they obviously have a not only a group of selected Endeavor entrepreneurs per country, but also they know the ecosystem. And,
And just a little comment on that, knowing the ecosystem, Endeavor's screened now 35,000 entrepreneurs and selected just fewer than 800. So
Right.
the tentacles are very broad in terms of seeing the entrepreneurial landscape and meeting many entrepreneurs. To become a selected entrepreneur, the bar is quite high.
So I think that's one great idea. And if that doesn't work, I mean, I found that I've gotten a lot of opportunities through cold calling via LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn can do wonders for you. So don't be afraid to just identify the companies you want to talk to and start networking that way.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Javier Martinez. I'm from Mexico, business person and entrepreneur, US, Mexico, back and forth. And my question is, I've been always interested in helping my country develop this ecosystem for entrepreneurs. There is a couple of years ago that the government-sponsored agency identified 150,000 businesses in Mexico, not startups, business, who can be a potential market for VC or equity capitals of that. And the reason why these funds don't go to Mexico, at least that's what they said, is two things. Legalities, we go there and we don't know how to get our money back. And they understand also that there potentially can be higher returns in Mexico than in the US. There's a lot of deals, but not the good deals here in the United States, whereas there can be a better deals in Latin America or Mexico specifically. So they say, well, two things, the legalities and the talent. There is no managers in Mexico to run these funds if we were to go set up a fund and then run the different startups or businesses. What is your experience? Is that the main issues for, Thank you.
We were asked to create a Delaware Inc. that then engulfed our Greek company in order for the U.S. investors to invest. So there is a legal path to creating a more safe legal environment for U.S. investors. That was our experience. I don't know if anyone has different.
And offshore funds.
Offshore funds.
Yeah, is that what you were going to say? Yeah. In order to, just as a point, Endeavor has many offices in Mexico. And if you are an Endeavor entrepreneur, you actually get access to a government loan up to $5 million just because you are part of the Endeavor network.
Wow.
So, and the government has come in and partnered. We can take one last question, I think, here. Anyone else? They've answered all your questions about emerging market entrepreneurs. No, yes? Well, I'll just open it back up to the group. I'd love for you to just make a last, if you have a pitch to anyone in this room here in terms of how you want them to view either entrepreneurs in emerging markets or opportunities, it's your time to have your strong close.
I can start. Our company is still privately owned. We don't have any investors. And frankly, we're not looking for investors now. We managed,
You were a long time ago.
We were a long time ago, but now they're taking us seriously to give us debt. So we're taking the debt. We're looking to expand throughout the region, the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa, and now we started looking into Europe. So I think better days still to come.
Great.
Yeah, I think I couldn't be more optimistic about opportunities in developing countries. Yesterday I was at a talk about public markets, and hedge fund managers are recommending investing in the developing world, not even BRICS, even the countries around the BRICS. So maybe not necessarily India, but Pakistan, Malaysia, and countries in the areas. Something maybe not necessarily Brazil, but Peru, Chile, Colombia. So the public markets, I think, there's going to start to be a big flow of money from the U.S. to developing markets, and once those public markets mature, there will be a lot of exit opportunities for the startups. So that creates a lot of opportunities for locally bred startups. And at the same time, like I said before, I'm a big believer that now in a connected economy, really it doesn't matter that much where you're born. It's just your DNA and the product you pursue. You have a lot of tools, especially on internet-based companies, either B2C or B2B, to really develop global companies from anywhere in the world. So I'm very convinced that there will be at least one, but if not many, very globally successful companies coming from an emerging markets. So I would encourage you to be looking out for those.
I agree with the last message. Yesterday, Peter Thiel said that he sees emerging markets as a source of deploying and adapting successful proven models in the US and not as a source of innovation. And I would like to disagree there, and I think that we are just at the beginning of a tremendous revolution of the information age, of the connected era, and I think I'm sure that innovation can come from emerging markets with all the information they share and all the talent that has all the mobility that we see now. So I will encourage people to not only look for deployment of proven models, but also for innovation in the rest of the world.
Great.
Yeah. I can't add. I think this is said beautifully. I think I love that this panel corrected any misconception there is about the emerging markets, and it's more of an opportunity with advantages than one of challenges, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
So are you ready to invest now, John?
No, definitely. No, I think if
Wait, no, definitely. I didn't get that one.
if the best businesses are always the ones that can afford to make the most mistakes, and the best entrepreneurs are the ones that make the fewest mistakes, in this connected world, I think if we can encourage more entrepreneurs to talk to each other, to share what they've learned, the whole world's going to be better, and we're going to see great businesses emerge everywhere. So, yeah, matching those resources up is a whole different optimization problem. But
A great way to end that, because that's what we do at Endeavor. In fact, we will bring together about 150 to 200 entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley in June from all over the world and give them a platform for shared learning. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, more importantly, our incredible entrepreneurs and our great investor. Thank you.